you'll never take the human out of the hiring process. Impossible. I think there is this holy grail that AI and machine learning could just get us to a place where it's like, oh, we've got the best person, here it is. But we can get close.
Welcome to the Schmidt List, the podcast for people dedicated to managing successful projects, developing impactful products, and building engaged teams. And now, here's your host, Kurt Schmidt.
Ben, how you doing?
Terrific.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So you're the president over at Markham. Tell me about Markham. What does it do? How did you get started in that? What's the story there?
Absolutely. So directly out of college, I fell into an opportunity where I was onboarded as a glorified intern, more or less.
Okay.
At the time, some certain business forces that exist today, such as hiring freezes, contracts are really non-existent at the time. We're not doing contractor. It's a new territory there.
Okay.
So anyway, we were onboarded as glorified interns, and we were running copy approvals, helping with photo shoots, creating collateral, and because there were some of these barriers to being onboarded where there wasn't going to be, and it was communicated very clear to us that you're not going to be converted and you don't have a long-term home here.
Get to work, monkey boy.
Exactly.
Go get my coffee.
We were just holding on for dear life.
Yeah.
And so we had our yellow badges. We're trolling the halls. We looked different than everybody else, again, because there weren't very many people on site that weren't 3M employees.
Sure.
And as a mechanism to keep us around, because we had a few angels that liked our personalities and so forth, we were given a vendor status, which was a golden ticket, really, which we didn't really know, but it was, at the time, just a way to keep us around and engaged with the company.
Sure.
And that, just right time, right place, opened up a lot of opportunity for us, at least in that environment.
Nice.
We were initially in a marketing communications group in their healthcare division.
Okay.
And the healthcare team was very robust at the time, 45 marketing communications people supporting marketing, sales, what have you. And word got out that, hey, we might be able to go through Ben and Joe, my partner, who actually is my uncle by 18 months, and still my partner, and still my uncle by 18 months, that they could potentially run some additional talent through us. And so we sat down with their leadership team and engineered a solution that was palatable to them from a co-employment standpoint, meaning there were sensitivities to bringing people on board. Microsoft had gone through a big legal challenge in that their contract or non-traditional employees sued them and saying, hey, we're disenfranchised here. We're, walk like a duck, act like a duck, we're a duck. And so to mitigate that right out of the get-go, and this is then in probably 94, 5, 6, that neck of the woods, right out of the chute, did W-2 salary, everybody that we onboarded, access to health care, dental benefits, paid PTO, really tried to build a package that was amicable to, as best we could, to what you would get through full-time employment. And that appeased the powers that be there. We were able to kind of come out, have some visibility. But what it really afforded us was access to much better talent. It didn't feel transient, didn't feel like a temp job. And the people that we were aligning ourselves with were usually at a place in their career where they wanted some life-work balance.
How are you finding those people?
In the mid-'90s, it was who knows somebody who knows somebody. We didn't have the robust job boards. We didn't have the digital recruiting ecosystem that we have today.
Right.
And so it was a lot of networking, and my cousin is graduating, and you should talk to them. And so you really needed to have a pipeline. And so it was very hands-on, proactively interviewing, getting people in the pipeline day in, day out, because you just didn't know when that next opportunity would break. And so real labor intensive, but fun. We got to know a lot of people. We had a lot of people in our network. And so our magic sauce was finding people that just had great interpersonal skills. We were generalists in that marketing and marketing communications world at the time. So people that could just do a lot of things.
So with the digital aspect of what's come now, right? It hasn't really replaced what you're talking about, which is that personal relationship building, right? It's added on to it, but I feel like some places have leaned heavily just onto the digital side and are like, let this automation, I'm using air quotes, do the job for me, right?
Well, exactly, and you can go that route, But that's going to create a lot of work for you in that you get tons and tons and tons of resumes that are swings and misses.
Not a lot of qualification.
The current job boards and the current digital recruiting ecosystem isn't really engineered today to do that vetting up front. That is a human quality. That's the magic sauce for recruiters, is to very quickly understand what are the needs of the hiring manager, and through that one sheet of paper, be able to shortlist and qualify and understand very quickly who potentially could be a strong match and who definitely is not a strong match. And I think that's the merit of any really great recruiter. But to your point, we do need that technology to help get access to talent and just have visibility into the world as to who's out there, who's actively looking typically. And so it made life a lot easier, especially if a job came to us or comes to us that's while remote. Say we need to find somebody in Austin, Texas that has data analytics skills. Well, we don't have an office in Austin, Texas. And so that works to procure a talent cloud, or at least a list of candidates that potentially could be a good fit for us, and then the recruiters get to work and do their job.
Right. So yeah, because I mean especially in today's workforce, I mean we hire a lot of young people, right? They're expecting a digital experience, right, and a quality one too.
I would say they are expecting one, and it doesn't exist currently.
Yeah,
in my opinion. But it's coming.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. Yeah, I was going to say let's talk a little bit about that, because again, like I was just talking with one of our founders here at Foundry the other day, and he had called somebody he knows, and the person was shocked that he called him. He was like, "Why are you calling me?" He actually literally sent him a note later saying, like, "Don't call me again without telling me you're calling me." And to me, obviously I'm an older generation. To me, I'm like, yeah, just call me. Like, I don't know why we went through all these hundreds of years of technology and just landed on, well, let's just send fast letters to each other, as like the only way we will communicate.
Exactly.
Anyways, that's a rant. So
it's so true.
Let's talk a little bit about what you're working on now, and what's it called, and like, what's your hopes and dreams for kind of the future of this staffing and recruiting model that you work in?
Absolutely. So the space that we have 90% of our business is in contracting contingent fills for large corporations. Mm-hmm. And unlike perm positions, a lot of times there's different requirements that those companies will have of their suppliers on how fast they need the talent, and just the metrics and how we're graded. And so we have certain clients that will release a job to us. We have 48 hours, find our two best candidates, lowest bill rate, that meet the mark, meaning the commute radius is just fine. The comp is good. And it
checks all the boxes.
Checks all the boxes. But it's a very difficult mandate and benchmark to hit because of A, we're at a place where there's very low unemployment, and B, the jobs that are coming to us in the digital marketing space are highly specialized.
Very niche, right?
Right. Information architect, data analyst, SEO.
But data analyst, like in specific this type of marketing or
100%.
This stuff, it's not just like developer.
Right on. And so even though we do employ tools like Monster and Indeed and Career Builder and Glassdoor, they're not really engineered to meet our need, in that most jobs sit out on job boards for about 42 days before they close. Mm-hmm. By the time we get a job out onto a job board, people get eyeballs on it and resumes start coming in. Our window in certain environments is closed. So we need to own our own destiny here a little bit. And from a pain point we set out to build a tool to say, all right, we need to know who's in the marketplace, geospecific, mm-hmm. what industry or what discipline do they specialize in within the marketing vertical, how well do they know it, and then all of the other things that are like human qualities, meaning I want X amount of commute, I would rather telecommute, I would rather do project work, and then industry stuff. Do I want nonprofit, for profit? And if we can have, we're engineer a tool, we can get this, all of that data in advance, it makes our lives a whole lot easier. And so the product's called Hoodo. It's completely app-based. Initially, we're standing it up for Minneapolis and marketing and digital marketing jobs. What started out as a tool just to meet a pain point that we had has taken on a larger life of its own because we see great potential with this tool. What's happening right now is everybody's kind of relying on this old model of post and pray. You put a job out onto a job board, mm-hmm. You wait for talent to come in and then start shortening your list, and it's very labor-intensive, as I mentioned, and not super efficient, somewhat archaic. And so our tool really works to leverage technology to get to a point where you have a vetted talent cloud much, much, much faster. And so It's app-based. The idea was we want a couple of things. Number one, nobody has to key in any information. Make it very user-friendly. Make it hyper-customized to the job seeker. And then we said, what is our value prop with this? And we were kind of coming at it from a diversity and inclusion play to build a technology that really helps corporations get there.
Now, I've never used a tool like ZipRecruiter. I've used like Indeed and some of these other things. How is it different than those types of tools?
When you enroll in hoodo, you go through and declare initially. So we upload your LinkedIn credentials. So we have all that information done. Then we go into an immediate deep dive into the kind of engagement that you want to have. I want perm, I want full-time, I want telecommute, I want basically what industries I want, as I mentioned, all of that stuff. But then once we understand where you specialize in, you can elect to select up to 4 different disciplines. We do a deep dive into the tactics and experiences, the skills and the technologies that all support that particular job function. And the user will go in and self-score. I'm either expert, I'm proficient, I'm familiar, I don't know it. And they wheel through a battery of about 30 questions that do that deep dive and drill into just where are they in their career and how well do they know it. And so that is a static score that we kind of have an algorithm that gives an assignment of that. As jobs come in, we do have the traditional post or cut and paste your job into the tool, but from there we ask that same 50 or 60 questions of the hiring manager. Is this a preferred, required, or irrelevant technology, experience, tactic, or skill for this particular job? And that gives us match scores. And so as jobs come into the tool, a match score is assigned. It would go to Kurt's mobile device and say, hey, Kurt, we've got a really fantastic job. You're an 87% match score for this particular job. Check it out. Well, right now, you're anonymous to anybody that you might be looking for a job, number one. Number two, you can go in and see the full job description, and then we break out exactly, based on the specifics of that job, how you align and assign that match score. And then we do a total rip-off. Swipe right if you're interested, left if you're not.
Nice.
Exactly.
I like it.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about, and so I think that's great. I love the idea of the tool. I want to dive in a little bit about your advice for people seeking roles, right? So you had talked about like more and more niche down type stuff, and I do a lot of career coaching with folks, and what I find is a lot of people get stuck in this idea of specialization because they feel like if I niche down too far, or that I'll lose out on all these other opportunities that I'm probably, to your point, 87% ready for, right?
Right.
So how do you coach people, or how do you work with people through that sort of thing? Because, I've got a great friend who's a data analyst, but he's like director level, and he's worked specifically in marketing, and he's worked specifically around these types of things. And I know that he struggles sometimes with saying like, well, yeah, I could do this in this area too, but,
it's a real challenge.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because you're dealing with these companies that are saying, I want this person as this specific thing. I want a unicorn that has the magical 3 to 5 years experience, and that doesn't exist. And I want them under this price point, which doesn't exist. And I want them by Monday,
right?
And it's Friday afternoon.
Exactly. And so you really, I think, have to do some long-term forecasting about a career path.
Oh, okay.
And
Talk to me more about that.
Well, where do you want to go? Let's look out 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now. What kind of company is going to help get you there? What type of job is going to?
What if I don't know those things? How do I find out those things?
None of us know that, right? I mean, crystal ball. You don't. But today, what interests you? What gets you out of bed? What are you passionate about? What is going to make you excited day in, day out to go in and just rock it? And I think from that standpoint, people get into a career path where it's like, this really works for me. My brain likes it. It invigorates me. And so it's stepping stones. And so what we try to do in career coaching, because we're typically coming in more in that 3 to 5 year work experience standpoint, is helping them get a foothold in an organization that can, basically, we can get you through the door, you can show your wares, and 80% or better of our talent gets converted into that organization. Once they've got in and shown, I've got stuff and I can deliver, and I'm a good culture fit, and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because I give very similar advice around that where do you want to be sort of thing, and where people immediately go, they're like, well, I don't know, do I want to be in a big company or a little company? And I'm like thinking to myself, well, think about like when you wake up, like how far do you want to drive to work?
Right.
What do you want to work from home some days? Do you want to, once you start to figure out what kind of life and career, I feel like that's when you can really start to think about like, well, this X enterprise company allows more work from home versus this one, so I probably want to, right? So
Absolutely.
Thinking about what kind of, it's not even about your career, but the lifestyle you want to lead around your career, right?
100%. And I think as we're all seeing, gig economy, project-based, freelance, seasonal, all of that kind of thing, it's here and it's going to continue to grow. And so having a tool and a technology that can accommodate that, which we're working towards, really helps to give people access to some of those experiences. And I'm like, okay, this might not be my forever job, and I don't even think those exist anymore,
right.
Clearly. But this is going to get me to the point where I can advance and see this is the next jump, and I want to try this and see how well I like it, or do I excel in it, or am I frustrated with it, and same with the culture fit. And so we work in much more micro stages of that career path.
So if I'm somebody who's a full-time FTE at a big company or mid-size, whatever, I'm at a place right now, and I'm considering going to this more contract model, like I'm sick of this same old, I want some fresh and stuff. What's your advice for me before I make that move? Like, what should I be thinking about?
Within the industry that you're in, and we'll just stick with marketing, is where are the trends? Where are the jobs? What is in high demand right now? And so, for instance, I've had plenty of people that come to me and say, look, I'm making a pivot. I want to get into marketing. I've been kind of pigeonholed in a particular thing. Immediately, I always seem to go to consider user experience. It's in high demand. It pays well. We've got a great company or school in Prime that can get you certified. They've got a great network for placement, and so go there. See, invest in yourself. Invest in finding out if that is something that will help you get to where you want to be in the next stage of your career. And so I really try to look to either industries or job functions, high demand, where do they start for talent? And that seems to be a place where people give or have the ability to get in the door, perhaps without meeting every single one of the boxes, just because the hiring managers are so starved for that particular talent.
Yeah, no, and so in that, let's pull out that crystal ball, as you said. Where do you see things going in the roles and things in marketing that you're working in now? Like, what's becoming more in higher demand? What expertise? What skills? What's the shape of the new digital marketing organization these days? Well,
marketing is the biggest consumer of technology. And so basically what we're seeing on our end is just an explosion in that digital marketing space. And certainly there will always be a need for brand marketers and channel marketers and strategists and people that are way up there. But where the volume of need is are these specialized technicians that understand particular softwares that support, for instance, let's say marketing automation. There's a new bolt-on, or there's a new tool that comes and adds a new feature. Well, it's very hard for companies to keep up with the pace of the technology advancement, and so we're seeing requests for jobs where there just isn't a big talent pool, in that either they don't have it in-house, we need to go out and find it. We'll lean on our supplier network to go out and get that talent for us, which is super fun.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine. I mean, there's, a lot of these organizations are beautiful and unique snowflakes, and they need very specialized talent, right?
Right.
They need that person that can, make Marketo stand up and sing and dance around and...
100%, yes. And so,
with 3 to 5 years experience at this certain price point by Monday,
with aerospace background, preferably.
Aerospace background,
yeah.
yes, or iron mining, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because again, I'm guessing you have to have a lot of those negotiations between.
There's always pushback, and not in a confrontational way, but in a realistic way, saying, we understand what the hiring manager is looking for, and that talent just doesn't exist in this marketplace. Let's just say I need somebody with 15 years in user experience. Well, it's not there. It's a newer enough competency that it was just being born. And so that talent isn't available, or I need that talent, but I max out at $35 an hour.
Yeah.
Another very frank conversation, like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so you do you work your tail off to do the best you can and to get the talent that ticks most of the boxes or has the aptitude and really sell that talent in. Like, this is a grinder. This person is hungry for it. If you just get them in the door, you're going to love them. Trust us. We've been doing this. This is our bread and butter. And so then you really become the advocate for the talent, and then trying to bring expectations back into the stratosphere from a hiring manager standpoint on, well, you can't have everything probably at that price point, but we're going to get you as close as possible.
Well, and then on the flip side, too, is setting expectations with those people about, like, where they might get hung up on this one weird thing about, like, the parking.
Oh, gosh.
Right?
Well, yeah. And so
I mean, I get it. I think parking is a big deal to me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not picking on anybody. But from your perspective, it could be like, this is the most amazing job for your career, and we're splitting hairs about where to park.
Yeah. I mean, we were doing employer branding before employer branding was employer branding. and basically that is, you want to advocate for that job seeker and you want them to be happy and successful, and you don't want to talk them into something where they're going to fail and or be miserable day in and day out. But it's finding the opportunity, selling the opportunity, really saying this is something that you should look at critically. And I know the parking might not be the best, or the walls are taupe, or they have very low cubicles, and it feels like you're living in a prairie dogville. But that's not forever. You're going to walk away with an amazing experience. You're going to have something that on your resume that's very impressive, very powerful, and it is really going to be a catalyst to you getting to the next place in your career, and just helping them kind of understand, like, all right, some of that isn't perfect, but look big picture, and hopefully convincing them that, yeah, let's take that chance, let's see.
Right. It sounds like what you do at Markham, though, is it's not just anybody who calls. Like, you're building pretty big relationships long term with some of these companies, right? So you're getting to know the nuances of them.
Absolutely. I mean, for instance, 3M is still our biggest and longest standing client. We've been with them for over 20 years. And so we know the type of person that works well in that organization. We know the culture fit. We can align them with alumni that have come through our company that ended up having permanent long-term homes there, set up those conversations early, and just answer the questions like, what is it like day to day there? Or how does it feel? Or how often am I going to be looked at for a promotion or advancement? Is that? And so we have the good fortune of being able to have insights that maybe another vendor that doesn't have 20 years experience with a particular company can't unmind from the outside looking in.
That's smart. So if you're thinking about, like, let's also look at the future again, the role of, staffing companies, recruiters, as this technology keeps getting more and more robust, more and more automatic, how do their roles change? How does their positions change in the future?
Yeah, okay, great question. So if you're fortunate enough to have, and I'm saying this facetiously, an army of 5 to 7 to 1,000 recruiters that are out on the phone connecting with people personally. Where are you in your career? How's it going? What are you looking for next? You could probably manage that, but that's unrealistic. And so technology has to do that heavy lifting for them, from a standpoint where they're staying connected with that talent and they have certain insights into where that talent is in their career trajectory. And so I think that, and this is where we're gunning, is to build a technology that really supports that recruiting function to a certain degree, where they can know very quickly, almost on demand, again, who's out there, what do they specialize in, how well are they at, or how strong are they in their particular discipline, and just curating that short list of that talent very fast. As jobs come in, automating that, getting that going, then it'll be the role of the recruiter to kind of go back in and check in with them. And it just, you'll never take the human out of the hiring process. Impossible. I think there is this holy grail that AI and machine learning could just get us to a place where it's like, oh, we've got the best person, here it is. But we can get close. We can get much closer than where we are, and I think the current titans in the industry are very good at curating a lot of resumes of a lot of people who are potentially looking for a job, but the heavy lifting of getting through that that list, talent acquisition or hiring manager, is just very inefficient and costly, and that's what we're trying to tackle.
I like what you're saying, because I think it's similar to like the analogy I use all the time about with banking, right? When mobile banking came along, everybody's like, oh, there goes all the teller jobs, right? But they now focus much more on that personal relationship, and they're more aligned with what bankers used to be years ago, right?
Correct.
And so their roles have changed, and I feel like in a lot of cases it's actually for the better. It has more impact, and that's what I'm hearing you say about the role of these people is like these tools will take care of a lot of the nuance in between and the connecting points, but it'll allow them to focus more on those personal relationships.
On the quality fit and the culture fit and the things that really, there are tools and assessments for sure that help get to that, but again, broken record, there's always going to be that human interaction that's listening, understanding, picking up on nonverbals, all of the things that really help shore up this is the right hire for us at the right time for this particular initiative.
Yeah, because that's what I would say, like as a business owner myself, and people I talk to that have worked with staffing companies and recruiters, is a lot of times they feel like they're just a number in a list, and people are checking in and saying, well, where are you at? Well, I'm here. Okay. And it's like,
right. Fortunately, I don't have to do a lot of recruiting. I did back in the day, but I look into like, oh God, the number of, I hate to bother. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'll get back to you another time. I'm the third guy that called you today. Oh geez. You've got that whole scenario. And again, it's a product of a job comes out, everybody's out looking for that talent. And oftentimes there's a very select few people who have visibility out on LinkedIn or their resume up on a particular job board. And so what we're really trying to do is end around that. We just think that that's very inefficient. There's a better way to get to that talent, communicate with that talent, and have them own their own destiny and what they want to be considered for or not.
I think that's smart.
We hope so. So getting back to I kind of threw this out there, that diversity and inclusion play.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And so once a candidate in our tool indicates interest in a particular job, they've looked at it, they've seen the job description, they've seen how they align from the required and preferred tactics, technologies, skill sets, all of that stuff. What we then tee up to the hiring manager or the talent acquisition specialist is what we're calling a kind of a sanitized profile. There's no insight into gender, ethnicity, age. You get basically an alias of the individual, a silhouette of that individual, and then the specifics on their match score. And we have, like I said, algorithms that help us determine that match score. Okay. And then they get job function, the company or the size of company they work for, and the duration of that engagement, and then their highest level education. So it's a very sanitized kind of, I would call it LinkedIn profile, but enough insights to know this person is either really strong or not. And it's free to the job seeker, free to the hiring manager to put their job up on the board. The only ask there is that they tell us, are those elements preferred, required, or not necessary for this job? And how it's monetized is they then unlock that individual based on what they know as far as them as a professional on paper without those other biases. So you don't make a marketing spend or a recruiting spend, I should say, until you are already that far in the process of having those insights on that individual. So we're calling it paper match versus a pay-per-click or a pay-to-post. Play on that. So like yet another acronym coming your way.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Exactly. And it's aggressive. I mean, we're going after a very established industry, clearly, with those titans in the industry that all kind of work on that same post and pray or pay-per-click. You put your job and every click charges you X. We just think that not only is this hyper-customized to the job seeker, their needs, their wants, they're in complete control, but also a much better business model in that you get to access to that talent without having to go in and make that spend initially and investing a lot of time in shortlisting.
This might be a little random, but I really want your opinion. Like I mentioned, I do a lot of career coaching, and I look at a lot of resumes, which I'm sure you've probably looked at a couple of resumes in your past.
Several thousand.
Okay. I get a lot of people asking me for advice on resumes. I'd really like, Ben, what's like your top 3 things like people should be, something you see wrong on resumes all the time and you always feel like you're saying the same thing over and over again?
I would say the first thing is just trying to communicate too much. You've got bullet points and paragraphs and just this whole kind of, I just got to puke it out because I know I've got one page and it's, probably.
But if I don't put all that in there, Ben, how are people going to know how special I am?
you pick up the phone and you advocate for yourself.
But they won't pick up the phone. I got to send them my resume before they pick up the phone. This is a catch-22.
Oh, I know it. So you make it super user-friendly for the hiring manager or the recruiter to recognize where are your strengths. And what I'm really seeing a lot of, and I think this kind of came through from more of a graphic design standpoint, is people doing charts and wheels as to how strong they feel they are. In
some visual elements.
Exactly. That's eye candy. It's great. It's amazing. It's just, it's a one-dimensional piece of paper, so we don't have the luxury today of people really, leaning on video, and it's coming, but it's not quite there. The gold standard is still just the resume.
Right.
And so making that as visually attractive as possible, talking big picture, talking about actionables or deliverables. I did this with my team, but don't if you say I delivered $4 million in revenue, well, maybe, but with the help of. And so,
right. What was your role?
Exactly. So, kind of quit the BS. Don't be flowerful in your language. Be very direct and to the point, and as best you can speak to this. And this is what kind of sucks, and this is what we're hoping to get away from. But you have to, at least in paper to job post, speak to what are the specific needs of that particular job and how you align with that job.
Yeah, that's some advice I give people, and they seem a little shocked sometimes. Is I was like, well, you need to customize your resume for the job you're applying for, and it's as simple sometimes as changing your nomenclature. Like if you call this thing, if they call it marketing automation, but you worked in account-based marketing,
right? Naming conventions.
Yeah.
I mean, speak their speak. Do the best without embellishing to really highlight how you align specifically with what they're looking for. And it's just going to help that talent acquisition or that hiring manager make that connection that much faster.
And the other one, and I really like that you talked about this, the other one that I give a lot of advice on is that impact. What's the impact you had versus most of the resumes I see, and I know a lot of you are listening to this, your resumes look like this, which is just like job description. It is literally almost a copy and paste from the job you got at the current job you're at.
Yep.
It's just a list of duties.
Exactly. And move away from that. Get outside the box. Find ways to answer those questions, potentially, without having to write a paragraph to explain. I'm just cut and pasting in here, and everybody can see right through that.
Yeah, I think it's important because, like you mentioned, I mean, I would love it if eventually we got to some other format than a CV, but it's here, and it's the standard, right?
It is. It'll be a requirement for the foreseeable future, but I think with technology advancements and tools like ours, we can have a lot of the technology doing the matching and the shortlisting and the hunting for both the job seeker and for the hiring manager, so that we can get away from that methodology and that norm and get right to the meat and potatoes of, well, what are we trying to accomplish here?
Right. And if you're serious about it, invest in it a little bit. Like, I mean, sure, you can send this CV out to some friends and family and stuff, but like, when I got out of school, I hired a guy that's a freelancer that helped me write my first resume.
Right.
Wasn't too expensive, and it really made a big difference,
Sure. Yes. And resume is only going to get so far. We all know that.
Right.
I think the current stat that was really kind of mind-popping for me is that almost 50% of all applicants do come from job boards, meaning they saw the job, they applied for the job, but less than 0.5% of those applicants actually win the job. So what that tells you is that it's referrals and networks and people or who is in the organization that knows that hiring manager that can advocate for you.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of a needle in a haystack if you're just lobbing your resume out there without doing some additional marketing or self-marketing to get yourself to the top of that list.
That's smart. Yeah, I just had this conversation with somebody on the show very recently about, a lot of these folks who maybe have been at an organization for 10 years or 15 years, they've got a pretty strong network internally, but externally it's the desert. And I get a lot of people say, like, well, it's really hard to do both. Like, I got to go to work all day, and then now you want me to go and network?
It's really hard, and I was guilty of it as well. We had our blue chip clients. We felt good. We felt comfortable. We felt somewhat safe. And, a little tilt in the universe, and the client goes away, and you get a little scared, like, oh, God, why didn't I work harder at my network? I mean, and so that has been over the last, I would say, 3 years, just top of every week's list. What networking event is out there? I got to be pressing palms. I got to be meeting people that are in organizations, even if I don't think right now today that's going to help me get to a new client or another hiring manager that has a need. I just can't stress enough how important it is to just start talking to people and getting involved, because it will open doors and you won't regret it.
That's awesome. Well, Ben, I want to thank you for coming on this show today. I always learn so much from our conconversations, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
First podcast. I don't think it's yours that I've recorded. So apologies out there to the Schmidt List Nation.
No, you're good. You're good. So if I want to find out more about Hoodo and the work that you do, see what I did there?
I love it.
And I want to learn more about this tool, but I also may want to connect with Ben about possible opportunities or things like that. Where should I go?
Yeah, first thing, check me out on LinkedIn. Ben Clark, Minneapolis. Markham Inc. is the company, so I should be very visible there. I don't mind throwing out my personal email for the company. It's ben@hoodo.io, and I can share more about what we've got going with our tool, our technology, and then also jobs that we've got that we're looking for fantastic marketing talent.
That's awesome, Ben. I'm really excited for you and this tool. I'm looking forward to seeing the next chapter in what Markham and Ben does.
Oh, terrific. Well, I'm looking forward to coming back and sharing.
Good. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Schmidt List. If you want to learn more about how Foundry accelerates innovation, check out foundrymakes.com. And if you'd like me to speak about establishing a growth mindset at your conference or with your team, drop me a note at kurt@foundrymakes.com. Oh, and the next time you're on the internet, head to iTunes and leave the show a review. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, because sharing is caring. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen to the show, and I hope you have a fantastic week.